What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here, PackersNews.com. I'm here with Ryan Wood of the Green Bay Press Gazette, looking at the quarterback position in this 2018 NFL Draft. Ryan, for the Packers, obviously not in the market for a starter, but do you think there's a good chance they select a quarterback in this draft?
Well, they got 12 picks to do it. So, look, what we know about the Packers is that they did their due diligence at the NFL scouting combine. They prospects outside the big 4 or 5, prospects expect to be taken later in the draft. Several of them said that they had informal interactions with the Packers. So, they certainly were keeping tabs on the class. Of course, 4 days later, Brian Gutekunst traded for Deshaun Kaiser, traded him to
Right.
Maris Cleveland Browns. So, they certainly they have to feel better about their quarterback depth now in April than they did in January. Deshaun Kaiser is a better prospect on paper just by virtue of being drafted three rounds and over 100 picks before Brett Hundley. So, but it would also be, I think, a risk to expect that the work is done there as far as building depth.
Right.
Deshaun Kaiser had a miserable rookie season, and he was a big part of their flaws last year in Cleveland. So the most aggressive approach that the Packers could take would be to use one of those 9 picks that they have on day 3 for a quarterback and make sure that they have a fourth quarterback in the room, something that Mike McCarthy was very blunt with. And you're sitting next to me when he was at the NFL Combine over lunch. He was very blunt that he thought that there should be 4 quarterbacks on roster. Right now, the Packers have 3. So that certainly opened the door. But as far as a priority, I would think it's very low on the totem pole.
Do you think there's a possibility, speaking of quarterbacks and the draft, the Packers sitting there at 14, we all know the big four, so to speak, will probably go early. Is there a possibility if one of those guys drops and or say a team is enamored with a Lamar Jackson that the Packers could drop back from 14? I know it's rarefied air when you're talking about the Packers. They're not picking there often, but is there a possibility that a team hungry for a quarterback could call the Packers and they could drop back in the first round?
You never say never to anything in the first round on draft night. You always walk away surprised, but I would be shocked if they traded back. For one, as you mentioned, it's extremely rare that they get to draft in the first half of the first round. More than that, when you look at their total body of assets with the 12 picks, they're really positioned to trade up, if anything. I mean, they have the assets to do that, at least a couple spots. And when you factor in that it's Brian Gutekunst's first draft, his first draft choice, I think there's a real possibility that he'd want to make a splash with that pick. And let's face it, trading down is not very sexy with your first draft choice. So, if anything, I would think that the chances, if they don't stand pat at 14, would be the trade up. I also think it's extremely rare that, especially the big 4 quarterbacks in this draft class, fall out of the top 10. Now, keep in mind, since the 1970 merger, never have 4 quarterbacks been drafted in the top 10.
Right.
This would be a historic draft class, but all indications are that it's going to be that way. So when you look at everything, I don't see them trading down, but you never say never.
Never say never, indeed. There you go. All the latest on the quarterback position in the 2018 NFL Draft. Make sure you're checking Ryan's work at PackersNews.com. For Ryan, I'm Aaron. We'll talk to you soon.